production company where I did large printout media, and I did videos and a lot of different kinds of things. I did that for the summer, and then when I went back to school for the normal year, I stopped doing that job. And it was our senior year, I believe, when we had lunch period off where we could go to places in town and get lunch if we wanted. And I was in the car with my friends, and specifically the person I wanted to impress was my new girlfriend at the time. And so my buddy who was driving wanted to get into male modeling, which interesting career choice. I'd never heard of that from anybody I'd known, but he needed a enlarged photo. He had like an 8x10, I think it was, and he needed it enlarged. And I said, hey, I know just the place. I used to work at this media kind of shop. And so we started driving over there. And this place was, it was an interesting building. It had been an old dealership, car dealership, way back in its history. And so it was kind of hard to secure the place. It was all windows and the doors were out of skew and stuff like that. And so the owner kept this large pack of very unkempt dogs in the back to sort of secure the back end. And so when we arrived, I got out of the car and I went and knocked on the sort of what was the front door, and nobody came to the door. And so I thought, well, I'll just go around the back and come in the back door. And because I was familiar with the place and I knew a lot of it was upstairs, you know. So I hopped over the chain link fence and began to go around the corner. And that's when I remembered that demonic horde of mangy mutts, and they came screaming around the corner and they were barking for my hide. Now let me tell you how I was dressed this day. I was wearing khakis and a nice button-up shirt, and I had these sort of dress-up sandals, which maybe that's not a thing anymore, but in the 90s, late 90s, it was sort of a thing. And they had this big, the sole on these sandals was really thick. And so when those dogs came running, I immediately turned and started sprinting back for the fence. And when I did that, one of the straps on my sandals ripped, and I slipped in the gravel as I was coming around the corner and just fell and skidded along the ground. Asphalt like scraped my entire side up, and the dogs just sort of descended upon me. And what's embarrassing really is that the one who did the most damage was the smallest. He was like a Chihuahua-sized dog, but I don't think he was anything nearly, with nearly such a good pedigree as that, but he was just sort of a small mutt. And he sank his teeth right into the back of my khakis. and so I jumped up and didn't know exactly what to do, but my instinct just took over. I jumped up and I realized in that moment that I can speak dog. I'm being totally serious. What I did was I started barking at the dogs. I didn't have any words. I just barked at them. And they all sort of stood there and did that dog thing where they sort of tilted their head. I think maybe I was speaking in an accent or something, I don't know, but they sort of tilted their head, confused, and that gave me just enough time to get back over the chain link fence and get out of the dog pit. And so that was like my first encounter with what was some relation to a wolf pack. Now the whole thing was so embarrassing. Right as I was coming back over the fence, the guy who I'd worked for, who owned the business, he came to the front door. He opened, he said, hey, what's going on? And I went to him, and my pants were torn, there was blood coming out, my hair was all over the place, my shirt was kind of unbuttoned. But somehow I still had my friend's photo in my hand. And I sort of held it out and I said, hey, could we enlarge this photo? And that's the first time I glanced down at it, and it had little pebbles, little gravel rocks embedded in the photo. And there's like one right in the middle of his face. I was thinking his modeling career ain't getting off to a great start here. And so the guy sort of looked at it and was like, no, I can't run that through the scanner. There's rocks in it, And so I came back to the car and realized that all of my friends, and especially my girlfriend, had been watching the whole thing. It was so